Social Security Code 2020. As the name suggests, the code was basically incorporated with a view to ensure that there is universal social security, and it would consolidate all the statutes that are related to social security, like you have your EPF, ESIC, gratuity, and the entire aim or goal was to extend your social security to all the employees, either in organized as well as your unorganized sector or any sector that is there. Now, again, like I said, this consolidates various codes, like you have EPF, ESIC, gratuity. So there are different thresholds that are specified under these individual codes. So the applicability would still be dependent on the threshold that have been specified in the schedule to this various chapters under the one code. Now this consolidates basically as many as 9 statutes, like your EPF, ESIC, maternity benefits, your employee compensation, payment of gratuity, unorganized social security, and so on and so forth. Now, again, let's understand a few of the key definitions that are there. Firstly, the definition of the term wages has been revised. Now, this revision is in consonance with the Code on Wages Act that is there. So, the definition of the term wage has been kept standardized across the codes. The definition of the term employee has been so contract labor has basically been included under the ambit of the term employee, which again expands the scope. The definition of the interstate migrant worker has also been amended to include self-employed workers, like we had discussed in the occupational code. So the definition is exactly the same that is there of interstate migrant workers. So again, increase in ambit, increase in benefits that are given to these employees. Now, the two main things that I heard is that they introduce the concept of a gig worker and a platform worker. So, in simple terms, what the code has done here is that it has expanded its capacity beyond the traditional employer-employee relationship, which has been, which has been followed out throughout the years. So, for instance, gig worker has been defined as a person who performs work or participates in a work arrangement and earns from such activities outside of traditional employer-employee relationship. Now, there is not much difference between the definition of a platform work and your gig work. Platform work is basically a gig work which would be carried on via an online platform. Here what they have done is they have gone beyond the ambit of your traditional employer-employee relationship. A key example of this would be any food delivery service, like for instance you have your Zomato, or any cab aggregator service like you have your Olas or Ubers. So what is being done here is that the main company might not actually have a direct control on the driver who is driving its cab, but still there is a relationship between them. But this relationship does not specifically fall under the traditional threshold of an employer-employee relationship. So what would happen to the protection that would be extended to these workers? So now this code has basically addressed this issue and has included all these workers, gig workers and platform workers that would be there. Now the benefits would be extended to the gig worker, platform workers, as well as unorganized workers in form of schemes. There are helpline facilitations that are there. There is a registration that has been provided for. There is a mechanism for social security fund. Now the social security fund is similar to the manner that has been given under the occupational code. So as you can see, all these codes are in a manner interconnected, and they basically go hand in hand with one another. So when you read one code, you can actually draw your inference to the other code, and you can draw a link between the benefits that are given under these two codes. Now, the schemes for the gig workers or the platform workers will be funded through contributions from your central government, state governments, and aggregators. Now, like I said, aggregators is basically your ride sharing services like your Ola, Uber, your food services like Zomato, grocery delivery like your Big Basket, and so on and so forth. So now there's a schedule which includes 9 categories of such aggregators which would have to undertake such a contribution. Now the contribution from these aggregators has been fixed at a rate that may be notified by the government, which would fall between 1 to 2% of the annual turnover of the aggregators. However, a limit of 5% has been fixed here that the contribution cannot exceed 5% of the amount paid or payable by an aggregator to the gig worker or the platform worker. So I feel a lot of protection has been extended. There is a provision for scheme which has been given. Now, when there's a provision for scheme given, it gives the liberty to the appropriate governments to frame the policies and to frame any sort of legislations or rules and regulations that might be required for streamlining of these sector workers. Now, moving on to the other main features, that is your EPF scheme, ESIC, and gratuity. Now, under EPF scheme is applicable to any establishment with 20 or more employees. Earlier, this was applicable only to only to establishments which have been specified under the schedule. Now, again, it has been given a blanket statement that any kind of establishment which would employ 20 or more workers would have to comply with the EPF scheme, like with the EPF scheme specified in the code. Also, there has been an incorporation of a limitation period of 5 years with regard to initiation of any sort of inquiry, and there's a period of 2 years that has been given for conclusion of inquiry. So basically, a strict timeline has been given which would need to be adhered. So I feel this is beneficial for all the parties, like even the employer and the employee, to ensure that in the event there is any sort of dispute or any sort of inquiry, there is strict limitation period rather than dragging on the issue or rather than dragging on the query for years in the judicial system of the country. Now, the next system is your ESIC scheme, which is applicable to 10 or more employees other than your seasonal factories would be falling under the purview of these provisions. Now, the benefit of the ESIC schemes are being extended to your gig workers, platform workers, unorganized workers, and your plantation workers. Now, the next one is gratuity. Gratuity under the Act, it has been specified that it would be payable to any employee who has served the establishment for a period of more than 5 years. But in the term of fixed term employees, it could be paid on a pro rata basis. So, for example, the amount of the duration of your contract and the amount of gratuity payable to you would go hand in hand. However, the limit has been specified at 3 years in case of working journalists. So I feel there is like a proper structure and given with regard to how the gratuity would be payable, when the gratuity would be payable, in what manner, and to whom. So I feel the structure has been streamlined to a large extent here. Now, coming on to the other few key features is that exemption during the pandemic. So the code specifies that the central government may defer the application of provision of the code for a period of 3 months in the event if there is a national disaster or a pandemic or epidemic. The world is currently going through a major pandemic, and the labor laws, I feel, are one of the key legislations for any country, and the impact of any pandemic or any epidemic on these legislations needs to be ascertained, and it needs to be ensured that just because there is a pandemic, the rights of the employees are not being cut down, or the employees are getting all the benefits and all the protections that they are technically entitled to under the legislation. Now, the code also provides for constitution of your National Social Security Board and State Unorganized Workers Board. So this has again been established with regard to ensure that there is for the welfare purposes of the unorganized workers, gig workers, and platform workers. So as we have seen, there's like a lot of benefits and lot of provisions that are being introduced in the code with regard to the benefits of these newly introduced category of employees, I feel, which is a great step towards the development. However, like I said, there are a few loopholes in the code which cannot be ignored. For instance, there is no integrated universal social security system. So this was one of the main recommendations that was made by the standing committee. So the aim of having an integrated universal social security system, that is the thresholds would have to be same, is that every employee is entitled to receive all the benefits. For instance, EPF benefit would be given to employees satisfying the threshold, or the ESIC benefits would be given to the employees of the establishments who satisfy the threshold. So again, there is no universal social security system that is being given here, and this was one of the major suggestions that was there of your standing committee, which has not been considered in the 2020 code bill. Secondly, there is a discrepancy in the provision with related to gratuity for fixed term employees under social security and industrial relations. So the industrial relation code specifies that a gratuity would be payable only after a period of 1 year of employment in case of fixed term employees. But your social security code specifies that this would be paid on a pro rata basis. So in case if an employee actually is employed, let's say for a period of 6 months on a contract basis, so that employee would actually be eligible for gratuity as per the terms of the social security code, but would not be eligible for gratuity as per the industrial relations code. So this discrepancy is something that needs to be addressed, and there needs to be some clarification that is issued in this regard. Now, the third important thing is that there is no common minimum mandatory entitlement across the states for construction and unorganized workers to ensure portability. Now, this is something that was again one of the major recommendations of the standing committee, which was not considered while drafting the 2020 code bill. And like I said, the recommendation of the standing committee was with a view to provide protection and benefits to these workers. So I feel these protections are something that need to be extended, and the rationale behind the suggestion of the standing committee needs to be considered in this regard. So this was basically a summary or a discussion about all the 4 codes in details. But as you all know, there is a severe opposition and criticism that this code has, like the 3 recently introduced codes have been receiving from certain sections. And they have been recently passed in the Rajya Sabha. So what we need to understand is that every coin always has 2 sides. So this labor reforms can also be looked at as one of the major reformative steps in the labor legislation, because codification of labor laws is something that has been on mind for as long as since 2002. So this is a major reformative step, and I feel India was long due that it ensured that there is codification that is being done in this regard. So I feel this is a much welcome step. But there is one side of the coin which states that the labor codes seem to be a bit more inclined towards the employer rather than the employee, which might result in exploitation of the employees and the workers. So again, the question comes with regard to striking of the right balance. So whether these codes or whether these legislations actually have struck a right balance is something that needs to be analyzed and understood. And this is not something that is a black and white area, but this is a perfect example of a gray area where you have both in abundance. Like we have discussed, there are a lot of rights that are being extended to the employees and to the workers. A wide array of employees and workers have now been included, so the benefits are being extended to all of them. There are also benefits which are being extended to the employers in certain extent. However, the key here is striking the right balance, and that is something that would need to be analyzed in depth to that way. So now before concluding, let us try to understand and weigh the pros and cons in this regard. So the one major question here is that whether these codes are actually a reform in real sense, or all have these legislations just been a mere compilation of those 29 legislations into 4 codes. The whole aim of undertaking this exercise or undertaking codification and consolidation of labor laws was not just to compile or not just to create sections. That was obviously one of the major reasons, that is to ensure a ease of compliance. But reformative steps was also something that needed to be taken. Like we have had obsolete labor legislations in place, like literally there have been archaic labor laws which need to be updated as per the changing structure and changing needs of the society. So whether this reform has actually taken place is something that needs to be deliberated upon. For instance, there are a lot of new initiatives like your platform workers, gig workers, extension to unorganized sectors, expansion of your definitions, expansion of the threshold capacity, and many such more new initiatives and new reforms that have been introduced via these core codes. But to a certain extent, there has also been kind of a compilation. For instance, under the code on wages, the 5-year period for review could actually be changed, keeping in mind the dynamic nature, but it has just been taken from the old legislation and put into the new legislation. So this aspect is basically a compilation rather than a reform. So this is something that needs to be considered, whether the code has resulted, surely it has resulted in some actual reforms and various new and initiatives which should be appreciated. But to a certain extent, there's also a compilation, because a lot of recommendations of the standing committee, like the universal social security system, or creating a unified threshold for all the employees, has not been considered. It has just been like EPF, ESS, and everything has been taken and it has been compiled into one social security code. So would that actually help? Would that help in betterment of the employees and the employer alike? Is something that needs to be considered. And I hope that this session you guys have understood via this discussion a lot of important aspects that are there under these codes, and we have discussed a lot of aspects in detail and we have dealt with it in depth. And I hope that this session has been informative and useful to everybody involved.